Hello, people of the internet. My name is JD Shadow. We need to have a bit of a discussion about a feud that had seemingly broke out on YouTube a day before I decided to record this. And let's be perfectly frank, first things first, I understand that Jeremy Hamlin, the quartering, is a polarizing figure. He has ruffled a lot of feathers, sometimes the wrong way, sometimes he gets things right, sometimes he gets things wrong. He's a dumpster fire, I do understand that. And this is not to defend every single thing that he has ever said, and I don't want people to believe that that's what I'm doing here. I do understand that if you sometimes take a position he does, then you agree with everything that he said or everything that someone has said. You can disagree with some things and agree with other things with anybody. You don't exactly have to agree with every last thing to think that maybe a broken clock is right twice a day. And also, this is going to be a very complicated situation. I'm not quite as worried about the back and forth between the two parties that are involved here. However, there are some things that Rich of ReviewTechUSA is getting completely backwards, and some things that he should be doing that he's not, but he is getting some things right, and there's a bigger discussion that needs to be called out on. So let's first of all get to what started all of this. What began all of this? The official Xbox Twitter account posted this tweet on June 8th. It said, "Hate has no place in the Xbox community, full stop. #pride." And you may notice that the Xbox logo is now Technicolor. This is a thing that we're going to get to here in just a moment, because I do believe that we need to have that wider discussion, and it is something that I think Jeremy was trying to get at, that I believe that maybe he floundered it a bit, and I will try my best in order to get this whole discussion back to what he originally was trying to get at. Now, the other thing I want you to notice is this here. They had seemingly restricted the people who could reply, which is something that Twitter's been letting people do, to restrict the kinds of people that can reply to your tweet. And it had to do with people who they mentioned or who they have tagged, they can reply to your tweet. So there's no way that anybody could actively reply to the tweet unless they were tagged by Xbox. Now, this is a red flag for a few reasons, and I will get to that in a little bit later. But Jeremy decided to quote this tweet and then say the word stunning and brave, sort of mocking the whole ordeal. Now, in of itself, if you took this out of context, it could sound like that he is denouncing Xbox's support for Pride Month. That we are in the middle of that. June is known as Pride Month, focusing on the progression of Pride communities. I'm going to call them Pride communities, and I don't mean that as an insult. It's just because there are just so many letters that you now have to say when you're talking about the proper way to name the community, that it's just easier to call it that instead of forgetting a letter and then having people be insulted that you forgot one letter or two letters in that now lengthy way you have to say the name of that community. I hope that's not insulting. I don't mean that as an insult. That's just how I'm going to try to shorten the whole name of the community there. So in the interim between when he posted that tweet and when he got the first indication that Xbox had actually responded in the way they had actually responded to him, he had begun to post his video. He had begun to make his video about the whole stunning brave thing that he had said, and made a more lengthy video about this. In the middle of him filming the video, apparently, he found out that the Xbox check-marked account blocked him, that he was now blocked from following or seeing the tweets of the official Xbox account. I stress the word official because it is the official Microsoft Xbox account that he was blocked from. And he found this out in the middle of him recording the video, so you can't say that he was responding to the block. He was actually responding to the quote-unquote virtue signal. Now, that terminology is kind of loaded anymore, but it still kind of has its rightful purpose in a way. But that prompted Rich from ReviewTechUSA to respond. Now, here's the weird thing about this. There was nothing in the quartering's video that would make Rich want to respond to it. He didn't call Rich out in any sort of way. He didn't say anything about Rich in any sort of way. He just decided that he had to respond to this. And in the video, he's claiming that the quartering made a video about Xbox blocking him in order to profit off of marginalizing gay and lesbian and trans and non-binary people, which is missing the point of what the quartering was trying to say, of what he was trying to get at, the point he was trying to make. But again, I will get to that in just a moment because it didn't exactly stop there. Rich then went on to a back and forth with the quartering about this whole ordeal, where he's saying that the quartering made a video to profit off of this whole thing that Xbox blocked him, the account blocked him, but yet Rich made a video himself out of nowhere. At the very least, the quartering had a reason to make the video. He was trying to make a point about what Xbox was doing, and Rich just interjected himself into a discussion where he wasn't called out on, he wasn't asked. He did this in a vacuum, and this ended up being a back and forth where it seemed as though Jeremy was trying to be more civil in the debate and Rich was trying to wage war. And it led to Jeremy posting this video trying to call him out, but also trying to be respectful and saying, hey Rich, I respect you, I think you're doing a good job, but you're wrong on this issue, where he's trying to have a civil debate, but Rich is seemingly trying to be more at war. And this was kind of weird given what we're about to talk about, because these videos came a couple of hours apart. First, Jeremy's made his initial video, and then Rich 2 hours later made his video responding to the quartering, and then the quartering responded to Rich in his own video a couple hours later. Then Rich did a live stream in which he actively made his narrative known, and the narrative here that he was trying to get at was that Jeremy was trying to marginalize and was trying to dehumanize gay and lesbian people by objecting to Pride Month, objecting to corporations that were coming out and supporting Pride Month as a whole. It didn't matter what reasons they had in order to show their support for it. It didn't matter how they were showing support. He was saying, why does it matter to you? Why does it have any concern to you? Their reasons. Who cares? Just let it go. Before he gets into a discussion about what's so wrong with two men loving each other or two women loving each other, so on and so forth. However, during the whole live stream, and I was there for the live stream, I had seen some of the people posting comments to the chat about this topic and tweeting him concerning the nuanced point of view that was expressed here. Rich made it a point to ignore all of those discussions and focused on this narrative he had. And that's where the problem seems to lie. And that's the part that I want to get at. There's a couple of major problems here. Yes, Jeremy is a polarizing figure, and I agree with Rich that perhaps Jeremy could have covered some of these other topics like the Alana Pierce harasser thing, or some of these other topics, and not focus on people like Amber Heard or Brie Larson all the time. But those are public figures that are involved in very publicized situations that have a lot of people taking very polarizing viewpoints and positions about, and the quartering is not the first person or the last person to focus on people like Amber Heard or Brie Larson. Clownfish TV has done the same thing. So you can't blame somebody for trying to keep tabs on a story, especially if it's something that a lot of people are interested in. They want to hear what somebody who is not bound by the shackles of corporate media and thus able to express their actual viewpoints without fear of getting fired from a major conglomerate organization like the Washington Post said you shouldn't cover it this way, you have to take this position. But there was some focus on how Rich is doing in terms of his social blade standing and his YouTube standing. And I can understand that YouTube algorithm is very weird. It is draconian yet so mysterious. We don't know where the lines are, but they have drawn the lines in the sand, and we don't know where they are because they paved over the sand with concrete, so we can't tell where the lines are, but they know where the lines are and we don't know when we cross them. And even progressive people who I consider myself sort of in the part of have tried to figure out where these lines are and have called out these lines before. So it's quite understandable that Rich might be feeling the pressure here, and maybe the quartering is too. I am as well. However, it seems that Rich is trying trying to play into this system. He's trying to play into this whole thing by probably going against the kinds of people that he thinks the YouTube algorithm needs to see him go against. If it's the quartering, then he'll go against the quartering. He defended the quartering against zombie kills before. So it's not like that he can defend these people against some more tyrannical people. But he seems to be going all in about this. And it seems to be quite weird, and it does seem a little bit suspect, especially when you consider that back in the fall of 2020, he did a few videos, quote unquote, exposing anti-maskers. He did that for a few videos and then just dropped all of that. Just forgot that he even was doing those videos. I wonder why that is. Is it because he generally did feel as though anti-maskers were exposing people to COVID? Or was it because he thought that was what the YouTube algorithm wanted him to do? And if that's the case, then it does a disservice for people who are on YouTube and are trying to fight the algorithm when they see one of the more popular YouTubers trying to play to the algorithm. It makes it a lot harder for people in order to tell YouTube, hey, this is something that should not be. You should be monetizing people who want to take on these more serious topics and want to take a position that's not really popular, but maybe something that we actually believe in by backing it up through evidence and through articles and letting people have the opportunity to express their own opinions and to have a civil discussion instead of shouting and screaming at one another. And we can't do that if one of the more popular YouTubers is trying to play to the algorithm and is trying to suck up to the algorithm. That's the first point I want to make. Now, the second point I want to make is that in this one particular debate, and I subscribe to both of these people, so I do subscribe to both channels, and I'm allowed to do that because I'm a human being. I am allowed to be able to hear an opinion and to make my judgments on those opinions while saying that, hey, they're just opinions and we should have a debate about these serious topics. And on this one topic, I think Jeremy is on a more stable ground than Rich is. Because in all of this debate, Rich is seemingly ignoring that the idea of pandering is the entire point that Jeremy is making. I had said before that I would try to say what the actual point was because I think Jeremy might have flubbed it a little bit. Here's the issue that Jeremy had with this, with the initial tweet that Xbox made. First things first, the red flag here is that Xbox stopped all replies except those that they tagged, which was no one, so no one could reply. In certain circles, they say that that's done because they're afraid that they're going to get trollish comments and hateful comments, but sometimes that's done because they feel as though they are going to get called out, because they know what they're doing. They are pandering to a certain demographic. And this goes to a much larger issue that I think needs to be addressed but never is. Whenever you are showing support for a marginalized group like this, whether it be for Black people, whether it be for Asian people, whether it be for Pride community, you have to not only show that, hey, we do support you, but you have to make active steps in order to show that you're trying to progress the standing of those marginalized groups within your company and within the society at large. If all you're doing is just making a blanket statement and then changing your logo to some seizure-inducing background just for that month, and then you're forgetting everything else that you should be doing in order to progress the standing of those marginalized groups, then all you're doing is you're making those marginalized groups that you say you support to be nothing more than spokespersons for your product. You're saying, hey, we support you now, go buy our product, and you're not doing anything else in order to progress the standing of those people. You could be saying, hey, we're hiring people of these marginalized groups, and we're doing that because we feel these people are talented, not just to check a mark. That needs to be examined too, because once you look at talents and whether or not somebody is qualified for a position, that diversity, that inclusivity is going to come naturally. You can't just check a mark and then expect for people to just let you go. You have to make sure that they are qualified for that position and they're going to treat other people with respect as well. However, if you're just putting a rainbow color to your logo and doing nothing else and showing that you're not doing anything else, then you're going to be part of a pattern we keep seeing right now, is that you're doing it for PR points, which Rich kinda touched upon very, very briefly in that video, but he did really nothing else and he went right into the narrative that he probably has to know, that is the authoritarian way of thinking, the woke scold way of thinking, which is, it doesn't matter the reason they're doing it. If you are against it, you must be a bigot, you must be a homophobe, you must be a racist. It doesn't matter why they did that. However, think of it through a person that is a part of a marginalized group. If they see that a company is doing it for just for that month and not saying anything else about it, and then after that month is gone, they don't hear about what they're doing for marginalized groups anymore for that rest of the year, what does that make them feel like? Like they are a part of a community, they are part of a society that respects them as equal people, or that they are nothing more than stepping stones to further corporate greed. And Rich wants to talk about the video that came about with I think it was the Army or the Navy, something like that. I forget which branch of the armed forces that was for, but that got very much criticized. And he said, why the criticism? Why do you care? It's because of the pandering aspect of it. If you're doing nothing to show that you are actively helping marginalized groups become equal in society, then what exactly are you doing? You're not helping anybody. You're not advancing anybody's standing in society or in your company. You can actively say, hey, we have hired people of color. We have hired people of different ethnic groups. We hired people of different sexual orientations or non-binary people, and they are qualified and they work with people who might be straight and white and male, female, whatever. They can work together and they don't have to worry about who people are, what they look like, because they have a common goal and create a good game or a good product. And they can work with one another because they can see past identity. And I think that's what Jeremy was trying to get at. Now, he could have expressed it a little bit better. He could have made it so no one could take him out of context like they were, but I think that was something that he thought that because people were following him and they already understood his positions on things, that they could understand the context behind what he was saying there. Unfortunately, because people love to take other people out of context, that was what happened. But also, would that had mattered anyway? Because the other problem we have is that if you try to call any of that out, any of what I just said out, you are called a homophobe, you are called a bigot, you are called a racist. And right now, that is the hurdle we have to jump over. We have to get past that. We have to get past the fact that this is not a black and white issue. There is a section that believes that you can call out when a company is pandering for little more than the PR points, and that is a serious thing that needs serious discussion, while still thinking that marginalized people need to be treated as equal people, and there's not enough being done in order to do that. And that is actually a very progressive viewpoint. And Rich could be served well by addressing that viewpoint, by addressing those people who do believe that is a serious discussion that needs to be had. And he's being very dishonest toward his audience. He's being very dishonest toward the people who watch his content by saying that that is a non-issue. That is the entire issue behind what Jeremy was trying to say. And maybe he didn't say it the right way. Maybe he didn't bring it up in the way that he should have brought it up. But the bottom line here is that Rich completely ignored that whole thing, besides that one little blurb that he made, and then he dismissed it as a non-issue, and then tried to build a straw man when the issue that he ignored was the entire point behind what Jeremy was saying. And on this one topic, and I don't agree with Jeremy on every single little thing he's ever said, but on this one point, I think he has a higher ground here. And that doesn't mean that I like either person any less than I do, or dislike anybody any less than I do. It's just that I can have a third-party mindset of where this whole thing is going. And I don't know why Rich found the need to bring this up. Now, he said, hey, I disagree with how you brought it up, but maybe this is a discussion that could be examined, instead of trying to go all in and being very suspicious about the reasonings behind it when you take into account maybe how he comes across or the YouTube algorithm. And I get it. I completely get it. You are making videos on YouTube. You are putting your viewpoints out there. You're putting your opinions out there. They're going to get criticized. I get it. I'm putting my opinions out there too. I expect my things to get criticized as long as they're done civilly and not through toxicity. And yeah, I can get passionate too. I can say things that can rub people the wrong way. And yeah, we do try to get people to pay attention to what we say. That's just the matter of how YouTube works. It's just what we have to do. And yeah, maybe we be playing into YouTube algorithm too, but at the very least we try to say that there's something wrong with it, and not try to completely bow down to the YouTube algorithm and try to completely play to it without saying, hey, something's not right there. Now, that's the second point. Now, the third point is very dangerous, and I wanted to really get to that point, which is the Xbox account blocking Jeremy in the first place. This sets a dangerous precedent, because the way that Xbox could have handled this is, first of all, open up the replies to where they can monitor it, to where they can moderate it, and they can actually get the criticism that they do need and the constructive criticism that they do need without having to worry about the toxicity of trolls and bigots. The matter of it is that we expect that sort of thing, and also Quinn or Digital Homicide or Anita Sarkeesian. We don't expect that. We don't expect things like blocking people out of a multi-million-dollar corporation that has a lot of questions about their ethics and about their business practices and about their monopolizing of such things and so on and so forth. And it's going to be very troublesome if we keep seeing Microsoft buying out big game companies like Bethesda. I don't know why there was nobody trying to say, hey, you might want to approve this. The FTC might want to approve such a purchase before we hear about it. Why is gaming the only media in which there is no oversight of this sort of thing? But that is for another video. The fact of the matter is that no matter what your viewpoint is about Jeremy or this particular situation, the fact of the matter is that there is so many other ways they could have handled this. They could have answered his query. They could have said, hey, this is what we're doing. You don't have to worry. This is something we're going to be doing. We have actively donated to some of these organizations to help out with pride communities. We have hired people of color. We have hired people of different sexual orientations, of different binaries. We have done all these sorts of things. But instead of doing that, instead of engaging, instead of saying, hey, this is what we're doing, you can report on this if you want, we understand that you are a popular YouTuber, you can get the message out there. Instead of doing that, they decided to go to war. They decided to block him. What does that say about somebody who would want to criticize them on other issues? Imagine if they did this to the majority of people who had a problem with the red ring of death on the Xbox 360. Imagine the backlash it would receive of that. If the answer to any question that the press would have to actually challenge big game companies like this is to find out that they get blacklisted by these big game companies, that is unethical. It sends a bad message to anybody who wants to provide some sort of criticism toward any of their products. Who else have they blocked? And for what reason? Who else would they block? And for what reason would they block him for? Whoever is in charge of the social media account, they really need to be talked to by whoever is in charge of their employment. Because it's obvious to me that now we need to be careful about how we go about criticizing Xbox or Microsoft or anybody involved in the company. And you could say, oh, well, Jeremy was a special case because he's very polarizing, and I'm going to use the word polarizing here, but you probably might have a much stronger adjective to define it, but I'm not going to go that far. But here's the thing, I'm calling you out on this. I'm calling Xbox out on this. Not just because they are not telling us what they are actually doing in order to advance the status of minority and marginalized groups within their company and in the society as a whole, but also because they chose to, instead of engaging, to play this game. And again, I expect that out of a woke skull game company. I expect that out of a small indie game company who cares more about their self-image than about the consumer goodwill. I do not expect it out of a AAA game system developer and a AAA game company. Do not expect it out of this. They should have better PR than this. They should have a better understanding of how this is working than this. And I'm not saying that Jeremy had it all right or that he doesn't say things that get under people's skin. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that he is perfect in any stretch of the imagination here. But to do this sets a very bad standard for your company. Even to to people like Jeremy, even to people like Rich, even to people like me or anybody else who wants to be able to criticize business practices or stuff like that and try to get the message out to people who need that information in order to make informed purchases, or if they're looking for places of employment and they see stuff like this and they think, am I actually going to get paid equally here? Am I actually going to be treated equally here? Am I going to be viewed as just a advertising slogan or a mascot for a company who's trying to quote unquote create goodwill with their consumers? Or am I actually going to be treated as somebody who knows what they're doing or actually going to be put onto projects that mean something to myself and my career going forward? People who are viewing these videos are doing it because they want these answers to these questions. And it helps nobody for Microsoft to play into Reset Era's playbook and saying that a YouTuber equals a bad person, because that's what Reset Era does. And you don't want to play by their rules. They are the most toxic place on the internet as far as video games are concerned. Don't want to side with those guys. If you're making them angry, then you're doing yourself a favor. You're doing a good job. You're doing something right if you're angering them or angering QAnon. If you're angering both of those, you're doing a real good job, because you should be angering both of them at the same time. And Rich should do a better job at covering this, and I think he's capable of doing that. I think he is capable of doing that because he does a good job on other things, but he's wrong on this one. I'm sorry, he is wrong on this, and he's doing a disservice to his viewers by refusing to take this whole idea of pandering seriously. He's not taking it seriously, and he needs to be doing that. Yes, Jeremy could have been a whole lot better in addressing what his objection was here, but I believe that his intention was to object to the pandering that was going on. Not that they were supporting Pride Month, but doing the right thing, but for the wrong reasons. And that you would have to do a little bit more than just say you're for Pride Month and change your logo around a little bit for a month in order to show that you are actually trying to help the goodwill of that community you say you are supporting. And it would just help us all if YouTubers would be able to get on the same page when it comes to things like the algorithm or stuff like that, because we would love to have disagreements, we would love to be able to have debates, but not like this. We should not be at each other's throats like this, especially when one party is set to go all in an all-out war and bring their guns, tanks, drones, bombs, and the other side is just want to have a civil debate about it. It's just want to talk about these issues and talk about these complex things that have complex opinions and which can't be judged in a black and white absolute scenario. Someone who sees absolutes where other people see nuances and shades of meaning is either a prophet or a quack. And in this scenario, I believe that it's Rich in this scenario who is not the prophet in this regard. And while I don't think Jeremy is a prophet either, he sure is not the quack in this issue. But the big case is that Microsoft, you need to unblock him, because regardless of what your feelings are about his opinions, that was just not okay. And we will follow up on that. My name's JD Shadow, and that just happened.